Nebraska misses on a portal running back. Is it panic time at that position? We'll discuss it next.
You are Locked On Nebraska, your daily Nebraska Cornhuskers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Good morning, and thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by Monarch Money. Take control of your finances today with Monarch Money and use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year.
All right, good morning. Welcome in. It is Thursday, May 1st. Mitch Sherman from The Athletic, Connor Happer of 1620 The Zone is with me. And yes, Connor, Nebraska swung and missed at running back Marty Brown in the transfer portal. The North Dakota State transfer who attended Omaha Creighton Prep committed on Wednesday to the Miami Hurricanes. He had visited Nebraska and Miami and was considering Cal. One of the top backs in the portal and the player from that position, I would say, who was most likely to join the Huskers this offseason.
Yeah, so I guess did they swing that hard is my first question. You know, I know.
Great question.
You know what these
the
turn
fact that
into,
we can't definitively answer that, I think, is a problem.
That probably, I mean, there's some behind the scenes stuff that goes into it, like, you know, what are these negotiations about? Yeah, I mean, they had him on a visit, and you know, I'm sure they offered a good financial package for Marty Brown. But Nebraska, I think, has prided themselves in that game as being a team that doesn't, like, they're not gonna run you down and say, hey, you know, let us know what the next offer is so we could double it, or so we can increase it by 25%. Like, they haven't been that kind of school. And I don't know if that's exactly what it came down to here, but it always felt like to me, as far as the football part is concerned, that they didn't really swing very hard. They had a bit of, you know, their approach was, if it works out, it works out. If not, then we're not going to get them. And they seemed okay with rolling the dice going into the season without an extra running back. And here we are.
As Matt Rule says, the most desperate team sets the market. I don't know if you've heard him say that.
He's only said it 9 times. Yeah. Let me stop it. Let me say that again. The desperate team sets the market.
So Nebraska was apparently not the most desperate team, but should it have been the most desperate team? Will it be the most desperate team at the running back position in a few months? We can't say this for certain right now, but it appears now more than ever that the Huskers are set to roll with what they've got at running back. That is Emmett Johnson, who started 5 games last year, amassed 900 plus all-purpose yards, and then several untested pieces behind Emmett Johnson. I will say here on May 1st, that is a mistake. Nebraska should have done more to try to land Marty Brown. Whatever it took, basically. Be the desperate team that sets the market. And it's not my money. I get it. But he kind of fell in their lap and was right there. And if you're choosing between Nebraska and Miami, usually you're not looking at the same things when it relates to both schools. Like, there's a reason that you would pick Miami, and there's a reason that you would pick Nebraska. Those are different kinds of criteria. The football, okay, maybe it could be similar, but like if a lot of other stuff comes into the equation, like Miami has a very different set of very different dynamic than what exists in Lincoln, Nebraska. So if Nebraska was going to one up the Canes, like, it needed to do whatever it took in Lincoln, and that didn't happen. So we'll see in a few months if this is something that comes back to bite Matt Rule and Dana Holgerson.
Yeah, I think it's probably, I don't know if it's appropriate to say that they like lost this battle, because it's just, like I said, it didn't. Right. It never felt like they were super committed to it, which I think is I agree with you, Mitch. I think that's the wrong approach to it. Now, not, you know, people will listen to this conversation and they'll be like, well, I mean, you guys act like this guy is going to fix all your problems. No, Nebraska is at this position where most of their roster, if not all of, besides this position in particular, is set, and they feel really good about it, and all of those things. And to be fair, like, their line has on this position in particular has been like, yeah, we are good with it, and so we're not going to run after Marty Brown in the transfer portal. But I look at this, I look at it right now, and there's just no way that it's going to be really hard to convince me that, like, Quentin Ives is really going to, be a trustworthy second back for them. Maybe they see something that has convinced them of that this spring. We've just seen none of it. And I just think ideally you'd like to have more at that position. We haven't even got into it. Like, we talk about depth. We haven't even got into the doomsday scenario in which Emmett Johnson gets hurt. I mean, that's a really bad one for Nebraska. So yeah, I think they should have gone a little harder for this one. But with that being said, I don't think that fixes everything if you do and if you get him. So there's that part of it too.
That never happens to running backs, though. Running backs in the Big Ten primarily stay healthy, so shouldn't be too much of a concern. Dana Holgorsen said in the spring that he wants to be comfortable going to his third or even fourth running back this year. He said he's never gone through a season where you didn't need the number 2 or 3 player. So before the comments come in, Johnson is an excellent back. I will say that. He's capable of being the workhorse. But in a 13-game season, as we are suggesting, you need more than one that you absolutely know you can lean on. And no matter what Nebraska has been saying about Quentin Ives, it does not know that it has that player in Quentin Ives. He has not done
it can't
on
know.
the field.
How
you can't
know?
entirely know from practice.
Yes.
When you've been when you've been there for 2 years, and there have been players ahead of him. I get it. Nebraska's had Gabe Ervin. It had Dante Dowdell last year. It's had Ramir Johnson for 2 years, Emmett Johnson. It's not like Quentin Ives was just rolled out there and he didn't get it done. Like, he's had to improve and ascend on the depth chart, but it's a question. And even if he's a question, and even if you do genuinely feel good about Quentin Ives, and Nebraska's not just saying this because it wants to believe that, behind him, they're not even trying to pretend. They're not even pretending like they have the players who are ready to go in the Big Ten. So you have Mekhi Nelson, who played in the scrimmage on Saturday, which was for players who
needed reps,
needed to protect themselves. Yeah, needed reps, needed to protect themselves from being cut on the 105, that kind of thing. So is he the 3? Is Mekhi Nelson the 3 at this point? I think so. I mean, could Connor Booth get up there and supplant him? Kenneth Williams is a little guy. Let me go through the list here. We'll talk about this in the next segment. I broke the whole roster down on The Athletic today. Kenneth Williams, Isaac Dickey is a fullback from a different era. Connor Booth, Jamarian Parker. Jamarian Parker, we didn't see anything from him in the spring to make us believe that he's going to be ready as a true freshman. He was hurt and honestly not in the shape he needed to be in. So Vince Genatone, there's the new running back right there. 3-year linebacker, 2 at the FCS level, 1 in Lincoln, played special teams. He runs fast. He's 6 foot, 225 pounds. Is he the answer here? Is he the magic potion that's going to fix the Nebraska running back depth? I don't see that.
The big picture for me is we hear people talk about this, or I do anyway, and supporters of the program or whatever, and defenders of it, and they're like, well, they must know something that we don't about the running back position. And I just think that's like a really, naive, position to hit it from. Like, also, when you consider what position we're dealing with, I don't know. Like, I guess I'll take it a step further in the criticism here. I don't know that I trust them with that position in totality. Like, I mean, look at what Emmett Johnson had to do last year just to get into the conversation. Dante Dowdell, we never heard Dante Dowdell's name until really the start of the season last year. And then he started getting carries, and there were like the whole position for the last couple of years since they've been here has been, it feels like it's been on a razor's edge.
It's been haphazard.
Yeah. So I think there's that piece of it too. I just don't think we have the history to suggest that we could implicitly, blindly trust them with this position at this moment. But that's just
I trust Dana Holgorsen more than anybody else in the organization to be able to get things straight at the running back spot, because I did think that when he arrived in November, all of a sudden there was definition there, and you had kind of the fire and ice combo of Johnson and Dowdell, and it was like, oh, they could have been doing this all along, and we actually see roles for these players. So I think Dana can do it, but he's still got to have the bodies. So let's continue this conversation. I don't know that we plan to go more than one segment with this, but let's continue it after the break and talk about what Nebraska can do. What can Nebraska do now? Yeah. It's over with Marty Brown. Is there anything between now and training camp that Nebraska can do to make it less worrisome what's going on at running back? That is coming up next. Right now, a question for you. Did you know that your Fire TV is also an Xbox? You can turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with the Fire TV Stick 4K device. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports, College Football 25, to Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, and Avowed, as easily as you stream your favorite shows. It's gaming made simple, and it's all a part of your Fire TV. In addition to that, Amazon Fire TV delivers endless entertainment. With the 4K streaming, you can watch more than 1.5 million movies and TV episodes from your favorite services such as Netflix, Prime Video, Disney Plus, Max, and more. I can tell you that from the experience in my own home. We have got all the apps, and whatever you want to find, you can find it with Fire TV. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K second generation, Fire TV Stick 4K Max first and second generation, and Fire TV Cube third generation.
Welcome back. Connor Happer, Mitch Sherman with you here on the Locked On Nebraska podcast. Okay, so like Mitch said at the end of the last segment, it's over. It's done. We're gonna question it probably all summer long and probably during the season as far as the running back position is concerned. But now you have to work with the pieces that you have, because there's not, unless there's a giant surprise out there somewhere, there's not going to be any additions to this team.
There are backs in the portal. I looked on the 24/7 aggregate of the portal.
Yeah.
They're not great backs. At least great as far as what they've done in college. A lot of guys who've transferred around to multiple schools and have been underwhelming. Didn't live up to recruiting expectations. So I don't know that and the portal's closed. So I don't know that that's going to be an option for Nebraska over the next 3 months.
Okay. So we talked about the other options behind Emmett Johnson and how you're going to need, a step up from guys like Quentin Ives and Mekhi Nelson and things like that. But let's go into the more creative category here. One thing, an important thing and something that I think Nebraska has working for it is something that you said in the first segment, Mitch, which is, Dana Holgorsen's offense. This will look and feel different with a full year or a half a year and an offseason under his belt. So that's something that's working for them. Can you see them getting creative, I guess, with this position and the things that they do to spread around the carry, so it's not so heavily focused on Emmett Johnson?
Well, yeah. I mean, the key, or one of the keys to having success in being creative offensively with your run schemes is the ability to just line up and run it. If your bread and butter as a running team is to run reverses and jet sweeps and get receivers and tight ends involved, then that is much less effective as an option. You have to be able to do the main thing. You have to be able to play a 1-back or a 2-back and do just basic run plays and create a threat to the defense with that. Otherwise, the other stuff is just very unlikely to work. It's too gimmicky. It's not Big Ten football by any stretch. But if Nebraska can stay basic and can do it and be respectable with what it does in the run game behind Emmett Johnson, Quentin Ives, and maybe others, then yeah, I think this offense, because of the pieces that it has at tight end and wide receiver, can bring creativity, whether that's Heinrich Harburg as a wildcat or as some kind of another running option. Remember, he's one of the faster players on the team, or Carter Nelson, who can really do it all once he gets comfortable in all that Nebraska's asking him to do at tight end. And then you have Corey Barney, Cortez Mills, Isaiah Mosey, maybe some others at the receiver spot who are just flat speed guys and will get you yards if you get them the ball in the right situation.
I got a question for you, Mitch. What about Dylan Raiola? What about Dylan Raiola in the run game? That's something that we saw more of last year. I don't know if it was 100% by design, but he showed more ability to get out and go a little bit.
I think that's a different answer. I think that's a different set of circumstances here. Like, that's not so much creative as necessary.
Good point.
I don't think what Dylan will give you in the run game is all that much dependent on what Nebraska has at the running back spot. Like, he's not a replacement for a running back. It's just, if the pass play breaks down and they need him to scramble for those 4 yards to move the sticks, is he capable of doing that or not? And I there's a play here or there, like once or twice a game, or maybe they just call his number on a draw, or some kind of design QB run, and he is able to get a couple of yards. But to me, that's such a small part of the offense. Yes, Dylan being mobile is important, but I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. I'm not really connecting it to the running back spot.
No, I think that's, we're talking about like the base, what are they going to be able to do? But I do wonder, how many yards did Dylan Raiola end up positive for rushing yards last year?
I would say no. There were too many sacks. I mean, I think in the Illinois overtime alone, his negative rush.
Negative 65. Negative 65.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, that's something that I hadn't really thought about in a while, because I just sort of put that on the back burner as far as what Nebraska was going to do. The most he rushed for in a game was the Ohio State game, where he had a grand total of 31, and he had like a 40+ yard run in that game, right?
It was a signature run for the year. I believe that an official put a nice screen on Caleb Downs, just like the All-American safety, and sprung Dylan for an extra 20 yards at the end of that run.
Yeah. So I just don't, back to the main question, I just don't think you want to get into like, hey, we're going to, we got Emmett Johnson and we're going to do what we're going to do with him. And remember how impactful he's going to be in the pass game too. I mean, that's just it's going to be a lot, gigantic load on his shoulders. But I just don't think you want to get into the game of like, yeah, don't worry, we could get some Ja'Cory Barney jet sweeps and stuff like that going. Like, we're talking about the traditional run game. Nebraska needs to be good at it. I think another thing that we probably should mention in this conversation is, or at least I think this, I have much more of a trust level in the offensive line going into this year. Like I think that's an important piece of this equation. So maybe that's part of their thought process as well. Hey, look, we put Quentin Ives behind an improved offensive line, and he could look good. Sure, but I'm talking about. I mean, Nebraska hasn't had I don't even know if Emmett Johnson is like a game breaker at running back. I don't know that he's shown that ability yet. I think he could be solid. Nebraska has one solid running back right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, we have beat that horse. Okay. So
we're done.
Let's the running backs in 2025 are going to be running on new turf at Memorial Stadium. Troy Dannon was on the Huskers radio network Wednesday night and talked about various items that are going on around the department. And he shared a picture from Memorial Stadium after the scrimmage in Husker games. After the media punt catch competition, they had to get rid of the turf. It had been stained to the point where no real activities could take place from that point on. So ripping up the turf, which is 3 years old inside the stadium, it did not get to its lifespan, but Dannon shared last weekend, that it's Thursday now, that they want turf that they can roll up in the way, like more. It's a new technology that exists with some of the turf fields, field turf, still the field turf. It might be an upgrade of field turf to help prevent injuries, but in Matt Rule's eyes. But they also are going to be able to roll it up. So if you have a concert in the stadium or a volleyball match, or they're going to be doing heavy work with heavy equipment because of the construction that takes place in the years ahead, they can take the turf up and then put it back down, which I found to be fascinating.
Yeah. It seems pointless to me, but whatever. Whatever you want to do. Because
how do you feel about the red end zones that might be coming?
That's great. I think that's great. I think it pops and it makes it look good. I know people have weird opinions about that too. I think
very
that's
strong
awesome.
Opinions.
Yeah. But like,
and grass,
they're going to get
will
grass.
Eventually come.
Yeah, when the stadium is done in God knows how long, they're gonna eventually put in grass, and they're redoing the grass practice fields out there. Dan had said on the network that those grass practice fields, they still have like a crown on them, like the way they used to build fields where the middle of the field is a little bit higher.
You could run the option downhill both ways.
Exactly. So they're gonna flatten that thing out and get new turf in there, and it also doubles as like a practice run for what they're gonna do in the grass in the stadium in a couple of years. So
I wish I could get those people to come to my backyard. I had to put some sod down recently because we had a trampoline that was a casualty of a windstorm last year, and my kids had just outgrown the trampoline, so had mulch under the trampoline, and it created a big 16 by 16 foot circle of dirt over the winter. And I thought I had it flattened out really well, but now that the sod's down on it,
not so much.
It doesn't look as flat. It'll be okay. Like, those things tend to work themselves out, and it's my backyard. But man, those guys outside the stadium who were putting the grass down and removing the crown from the field, they would be much more adept at that than me.
Yeah, they got some heavy machinery for that. All right. When we come back, we will. Mitch has got a story out on The Athletic about sort of the complete roster picture as of right now, and we'll have some more as well coming back on the Locked On Nebraska podcast. But first, another question for you. Do you ever wonder where all your money went? I do. Between dining out, online shopping, entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money is not just a budgeting app. It's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending all in one place, so you stop managing your money and you're able to actually start building towards something, building toward wealth. It has all-in-one convenience instead of juggling multiple apps to try and figure out where monies are or where they're getting spent. Monarch has your financial desk. You could track spending and even plan long-term goals from there. So we invite you to take control of your finances today with Monarch Money. Use the code LOCKEDONCollege at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. MonarchMoney.com, code LockedOnCollege, all one word, for half off your first year.
All right, wrapping the show here on this Thursday, first day of May. We made it through April. Should be smooth sailing from here. Just perfect weather, all the way out. You think?
Definitely. That's
straight through the College World Series into the 4th of July. Like we're it's right around the corner.
I'm excited for May. Lot of things happen in May. The Big Ten baseball tournament and its pool play is at the end of the month. Gabe Swanson will get super duper hot. He'll hit about 7. He'll turn into Babe Ruth this month. Last year in May, I was looking at it this morning. Last year in May, we learned what time the Colorado game would be, and people were excited about that one. So maybe some game times that pop out there a little bit this month. So a lot moving.
Yeah, we could get some scheduling news. There's not a Colorado game, so to speak, on the Nebraska schedule. And do we know the kickoff time? We know the kickoff time for Cincinnati, right?
No, but it's Thursday, so it's going to be.
It's a night game.
7:00 probably. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So inspired by the running back conversation and the portal happenings, I sat down yesterday and put together a list with little sentences for each player to detail the entire Nebraska football roster, the 123 players who remain after portal departures that followed and happened during the spring. So you can find that on The Athletic. Please check it out. I think it's a little bit enlightening. Like, I learned some stuff just going through that exercise about what the Nebraska roster looks like. I learned that while they are at 123, the efforts that the Nebraska coaching staff and personnel department have made to prepare for the 105, thinking most of this offseason, all of this offseason until a couple of weeks ago, that the 105 was going to be a reality. Like, they're in good shape despite being 18 players over. Like, they can get there pretty easily if they need to.
Exactly. It's such a great point, because there has been so much consternation and complaining from administrators and coaches about, oh my God, it's going to suck to get down to the 105. And they want to, they want to do right by their players and things like that, and opportunities. But like, as you break this down, I mean, they got 6 quarterbacks, 8 running backs, and that doesn't look like what an NFL roster would look like. There's still 400, 18 linebackers and 26 defensive backs. Like, it wouldn't be that hard to cut it down to 105 today, outside of the actual personal element of it. Like, you have to tell those guys that they have to leave.
That's the thing. It's hard from a personal standpoint. It's hard to tell someone, we recruited you and now you have to leave because there's not room for you on the roster. There's nothing that has changed there. But as far as just let's get your roster into position to be able to compete, like, you're not going to lose much competitively to go from 123 to 105. But it's a moot point because they probably won't have to do that. The players who would be cut are now going to be protected because Judge Wilkin has said so. And maybe next week we'll get final resolution on that. So a couple of thoughts, particularly in the secondary. There is a surplus of players who are just kind of there. Not players who you could see breaking through in the next 6 months. So after I put this together, I did another exercise where I counted the number at many of the position groups who I would say are on a clear path or have a defined role. And that does not include the true freshmen. So the true freshmen, we don't know enough.
You'll figure that out.
Some of them you could say have a clear path, like the receivers, Mosey and Mills. But we took the true freshmen out of this equation. So at DB, there are kind of 12 out of 23 who are returning players that actually have a clear path or defined role. That's barely half. So 15 out of 26 when you add in the freshmen. There you can see where there's some room to still do some work if it's needed. Any thoughts there about the DBs as you look at that group?
No, it's pretty easy to sort of see. As we said all along, there's this clear sort of line of demarcation between guys that like you said. I think it's a really good way to put it. Like either on a path or, have a clear path or already in the conversation for playing time. The rest of them, you're battling. But like you said, might not matter this year.
So the two position groups that I found to be more impressed with than I thought I would have been going into the spring are offensive line and linebacker. So the reason for the offensive line is because of the same thing that I just talked about with the DBs. 12 out of 17 who were returning players with a clear path or defined role. And then you have 4 true freshmen. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good number. More than that's about 70%. And then at linebacker, it's not so much that, it's that I really like the top 6. The top 6 that Nebraska has of Dasan McCullough and Willis McGahee at Jack, and then Marcus Watson Trent, Javen Wright, Vincent Shavers, and Jacob Bauer in the middle. I think that's a solid top 6 for 3 positions.
And that's before you even get to some younger guys who are promising who haven't, I mean, Dawson Merritt and Christian Jones in Pierce Newberry, the freshman. But, Maverick Noonan still kind of waiting on him to come around as well, because he had a big injury. You hear a little bit of Gage Stanger, every now and then as well.
Leadership is there. Yeah,
there's some stuff in there for sure.
So O-line and then linebacker. If you apply that principle to the running backs, by the way, 2 out of 6 in have a clear path or defined role. And I'm putting Quentin Ives in that category strictly based on what coaches and teammates have said about him. Interesting to talk about the wide receivers. So there's 14 on the roster. 4 are new. 6 of the 10 who are coming back have that clear path. And that's probably about where you want to be. Like if you're hitting 60%, 60 to 70%, like they're at receiver or O-line, then I think that's where you need to be to have an efficient 105 eventually. And then we'll also look at the defensive line, which I think is an area, and Nebraska's beefed up the defensive line. Like it's there are some position changes that are reflected here. If you look through the list, you can see that they've moved a few players over to defensive line who were elsewhere on the roster. But it's not there as far as the depth, like the defined depth. So 5 out of 15 who I think what you can get from, and everybody knows who those 5 are. It's the 3 projected starters in Judy, Van Poppel, Lenhart, and then Keona Davis and Williams Winery, who are high ceiling, big promise guys off the edge. Everybody else of the returning players, you're just not sure. You're not, I mean, like, is he going this way? Is he trending up? Is he trending down? Like, it's hard to say, either because they've dealt with a lot of injuries or just haven't been able to find a way to get on the field. And then there are 3 true freshmen to make 18 defensive linemen, which is more than what Nebraska's had in the program in recent years. So they've actually added D linemen and added defensive backs. One good, one probably not such a good thing. As they've gone about trimming the roster. 30 players less on the roster right now than there were to start the season last year.
I really liked the way you sort of break that down there, like with the clear path piece of it, and you can get a really good sense of where the positions are at, and that sometimes, like, this is not a huge deal. All of your positions, don't need to be positions of strength, although you'd like them to be. But like, I think you would probably, when you look at defensive line there, you'd call it in a state of transition. There's a reason for that. It's because you lost like 80% of your snaps from last year, and guys who were going to, be in NFL training camps coming up in a month. So, that's one of them, but that doesn't mean you can't get solid production out of it.
Yeah. All right. Let's close the show there. We'll be back tomorrow. Get your mailbag questions in. Friday mailbag into the week. Lots to discuss, lots going on in Nebraska athletics. Anything you heard the athletic director say this week that you'd like us to talk about, we'll get to that for sure. Football. We can talk college baseball, whatever it is. Nebraska volleyball on the road at Ord against South Dakota State this weekend. Maybe at Ord High School. Maybe we'll get a volleyball question. New show to recommend for you here at the end. Thanks for making Locked On Nebraska your first listen today. For your second listen, check out The Portal Show That's right. The Portal Show. Brian Smith has the latest rumors, portal entries, and signings all covered. Be the most informed fan on the rapid changes to the college football landscape. Find The Portal on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.